AI-coded products have entered their golden age. Vibe coding and agentic engineering empower developers to turn their ideas into working applications in hours. But when that big idea reaches the threshold of production, it almost always fails. See, only 5% of AI-coded apps survive in the real world. The other 95% fail at the validation stage, fall apart, and fall into the abyss. And this fact is maddening. Why does this happen, and how can we fix it? My name is Stephanie Wong, and as Google Cloud's global lead of developer programs, I have exclusive access to teams across Google and more, sharing the tools and best practices that you won't find anywhere else. We'll create the playbook developers need to rise into that elite 5%. In this episode of Emergent, we'll dig into how Google validates AI products, a simple but radical idea that will change how you build. When you're starting out, it's thrilling to join that AI race. You vibe code a great app that you know would make a fantastic product. It's pure creativity, iteration on top of iteration. But because you can't get real data for your demo, it fails. You solve that problem, but then you can't get user feedback, so it fails again. Align with your team, fail. But even if you pass the validation stages, these processes take time. And with developers receiving top-down pressure to ship faster and faster, that's time that you often don't have. And it all makes us feel like we're stuck in this never-ending lap race of endless obstacles. The icing on the cake, when you open X, you see people bragging about the shiny new toy they just shipped. How the heck did they do it? Is it all fake? Is the golden age of AI really fool's gold? First of all, let's take a deep breath. AI development, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and we need to have some mental stamina to figure it out. So let's think about this. What if the question isn't how did they succeed, but rather why didn't they fail? To answer that, I met up with my mentor, Adi Osmani. Adi is the rock star engineer behind To-Do MVC, Chrome DevTools, and Agent Skills. And after leading Google Chrome for more than a decade, his products have defined an era. So if there's anyone who knows how to escape that failure circle, it's Adi.
So the first thing you need to know about me is that I fail all the time.
Or maybe not.
I think it's okay to not worry about failure because it's inevitable. I've been trying to build an AI Weekly dev newsletter project, and the idea is that it just lets me know all of the latest coding news across lots of different social networks. So I use lots of different parallel coding agents for this. I try to use anywhere up to 10 at a time. And so I'll delegate as much as I can to these agents for anything isolated, and I'll keep those tasks that are nuanced and just a little bit more complex for myself to tackle. Usually what I'll do is I'll pay a little bit of attention to the changes landing. You know, does it render right? Does it look right? And I'll just merge those changes in. I'm kind of YOLOing when I'm doing that, but if I keep merging these changes in and I'm not paying attention to the details, things can eventually break. And that's exactly what happened. 2 of my apps just broke because I wasn't paying attention to the details. So vibe coding and agentic engineering are a lot like piloting a jet. They allow me to move faster and maneuver quickly, but the faster I go, the more likely I am to fail. And failure is the only way that we really improve.
While I agree that developers should embrace failure, it's a lot easier when you're working on a solo project that doesn't have any users. When I'm building with my team at Google, I'm not steering it. Instead, I am one part of a big organism that needs to be reliable, accurate, secure, and compliant. The rules are just a lot more strict, and the layers of approval are way more complex and difficult to navigate, even in the pre-production phase. If I start vibe coding, it's not always gonna go so well, and the risks or consequences of that failure are so much higher. So developers need to move at light speed while minimizing risk. But vibe coding alone can't do it. Or can it? To find out, I needed to find someone who didn't just crash land their jet, but something much bigger. Time to learn how to fail on the most massive scale possible. After searching far and wide for Google's biggest failure, I finally discovered YouTube's Benji Bear. Okay, so Obviously, I'm kidding. Benji is the furthest thing from a flop imaginable. In fact, he's the ingenious engineer who came up with a novel solution to a problem that probably sounds pretty familiar.
Compared to a startup, building a YouTube can be a bit slower. For example, a few years ago, we were trying to redesign the playlist page, and it took a small team multiple cycles not to launch it, but just to show an ugly demo to our boss to see, is this the direction we want to be going in? This kind of problem has gotten especially hard when we're trying to build features with completely novel technologies like language models that YouTube has never had to scale before. And trying to do that can feel almost impossible the normal way. This is by design. YouTube's massive production servers handle billions of users, and legacy code is 20 years old. You can't risk overloading that code base with the technical debt of an experimental, rapidly vibe-coded app, particularly when the blast radius of failure could affect a platform that's basically a public utility at this point.
Fortunately, YouTube has guardrails to prevent this kind of catastrophe in real life, but you get the idea. Benji and his team were struggling to move as quickly, build as cheaply, or pivot as easily as they wanted to. And that's before you factor in that DeepMind has new releases every few weeks. By the time a demo was complete, even great ideas could feel out of date, and Benji had major FOMO. It was this risk versus speed paradox on an epic scale, and you won't believe how Benji solved this puzzle.
I want us to foster more of an entrepreneurial culture where anybody on the team could feel energized to build a new feature and vet it in weeks, not quarters.
While still accounting for the platform's technical complexity, right?
Exactly. And when we were looking at the projects that people were doing, especially these new AI features, the ones that were actually landing, the teams were prototyping.
Hold up, prototyping? Developers love using AI Studio to vibe code prototypes. But if you've been paying attention, you already know that's not enough because you're starting from scratch. This is the blank canvas problem. You can't test your prototype on the YouTube server or see how it interacts with YouTube's UI. And without API access or real data to validate your prototype, you're doomed. You might as well prototype with paper and scissors and call it vibe crafting. So to prototype in a production environment, Benji needed to take the fast-paced, high-risk AI-integrated orchestration nature Addy loves and connect it directly to YouTube without actually connecting it to YouTube.
I knew I needed to build a flexible, safe environment for prototyping, and one that minimized the technical debt and reduced the number of layers and systems somebody would have to navigate just to test an idea.
The solution Benji and others built would have implications not just for AI product development at YouTube, but for all of Google. This is their prototyping stack, a rapid full-stack product validation platform. It allows developers to access actually useful data for their vibe-coded prototype. See how their prototype looks and performs on the YouTube UI, and click around and remix their pilot in real time. It includes API access to YouTube data and AI Studio templates. And coupled with AI Studio's powerful agentic coding, they could offer a fully mirrored version of YouTube in AI Studio. It solves the blank canvas problem by rebuilding YouTube in a kind of parallel universe.
Recreating YouTube in AI Studio was relatively easy to build. YouTube Recap and YouTube Ask and a lot more features were first vibe coded with read-only API access to the real YouTube database. We experimented with maximum flexibility where we could bring new versions of our features to UXR within weeks. This process allowed us to use the latest and greatest models from DeepMind, so we never felt like we were lagging behind.
So now Benji and his developers can iterate, remix, gather data, align their vision, and perfect their prototype. Then they just copy and paste from AI Studio into the production server, right? Yeah, not quite. While users at Google can now quickly vibe code a fantastic prototype, it's still vibe coded. And YouTube is still a huge organization full of complex code and robust guardrails. All of those layers we cleared for prototyping come rushing back for production. These layers create friction, and there's a real tax to getting through all of them. Benji's solution?
Embrace throwaway code. That's what I tell everybody. use the prototype to prove the idea, and then do a hard rewrite in production with more conviction.
So it's faster to rebuild a proven idea than to polish a messy prototype?
Exactly. That's the beauty of having this two-track system, is that anyone can build a prototype, even if you're not a coder.
And that's the true genius of Benji's platform. It removed both the engineering and political barrier that often stop promising ideas from crossing that execution barrier. See, before we had a system for vibe coding prototypes, only a few engineers like Benji could ideate and build new features for YouTube. But AI prototyping with access to live APIs rewrote the rulebook. It changed the relationship between builders, product managers, UX researchers, and engineers. It opened up the playing field and empowered everyone to test their idea, increasing the chances of good ideas breaking through and offering a support system to help you bounce back after failure. By allowing all of us to try and, yes, to fail. AI democratized coding for all people. Since Benji's team created and deployed these connected AI systems, there's been this cultural shift at YouTube. Prototyping is now the standard. And Benji was recruited by DeepMind to take the sandbox he built at YouTube and apply it to all of Google. Now every developer can prototype with API-accessible demos that prove something is working with quantitative data. So I guess my follow-up is, how can people apply what Benji built for their team?
So the solution is to leverage the power of AI Studio or any of the other tools in Google's tech stack to create your own prototyping stack.
Okay, I think we're gonna have to save that for another video, but for now, what is the simple solution?
The simple solution is shift your mindset.
Oh, okay. Shift my mindset. What's next? Use the force? No, but I think you're right, Addie. And the mindset shift begins with me. See, it turns out the 95-5 rule was never the problem. In fact, we should be encouraging people to fail more and fail spectacularly. That's how you get the best ideas. With AI, we aren't just coders anymore. We're architects of safety. Our job is to build bridges that don't necessarily prevent failure, but make failure more successful. Is it realistic for engineers to build a proto stack for their organization? Yes, in fact, it's a necessity. Because the biggest risk isn't breaking the system, it's missing the moment. Only by embracing a bottoms-up approach can you unlock your team's potential. And Benji, his team, and AI Studio have given you the keys. In the AI product golden age, developers have every reason to be hopeful because you are the agents of change. And the companies and teams that embrace this fact will be the ones who win the AI race.